Hi, everybody. Welcome back to She Abides podcast. I'm your host, Denise. Today's guest is Juanita Harrison. She is a mom, self published author, an author coach, and the owner of Grace for Purpose Publishing Co. LLC. She is a purpose pusher who encourages others to protect and fulfill their purpose. Welcome, Juanita.
Hi, Denise. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thank you for being on here. I always like to give a little personal touch for my guests. And you and I met while we were doing a webinar for the Row Room.
Yes.
And from that moment on, we just clicked. It was like
My
one of those
sister.
divine, yes, one of those divine connections where you just know God is in that relationship. And
Yes.
we have been building our personal relationship, but also our relationship with women in the kingdom. And I just love doing that. And I can't think of a better person to do it with than you. You are
Definitely
just
likewise.
you're so inspiring and just so wonderful. You are, the person who has helped me with my podcast. We talked about this when I did your podcast, but
Yeah.
just how encouraging you were, how open you were to helping me set up my podcast and work through any of the kinks and issues. And you kept saying, well, you want to do this and you want to do that. Make sure you set this up. And I just thought that was just so wonderful because I don't think that we do that enough as women.
Right. Yes.
Support each other and push each other and not worry about, oh, she's trying to do the same thing I'm doing. And it was just like, yeah, you need to do this, and make sure you got this and make sure you have that. And you want to make sure you do this. And I just am so very thankful for you.
Of course. That's what we're supposed to do. We help each other out.
That's right. So I like to open up with a little icebreaker. So tell us, what do you do to get yourself centered?
I feel like I do a couple of different things. One of my favorite groups to listen to now is Maverick City Music. And I'll put that on and I'll just listen to that. I also like to, it's weird, I like to grocery shop. That's so that's my me time. I can go in the grocery store and I can just walk through the aisles, and I know it's super weird, but that's a way that I really get centered. So listening to worship music, going grocery shopping, and then of course praying, but that worship music gets you into that place. And then grocery shopping does that for me too.
Well, you know what? That explains so much. That explains why we're friends. Because a lot of people that know me are like, you are so weird. You do the weirdest things. And yeah, I can think, well, now my kids are older, but I know when my kids were younger, that would be like the time where I would just be walking up and down the aisles.
Yeah.
And my husband was at home. Now, if he comes to the grocery store, he's rushing me, like he's ready to get out of there. But if I go by myself, I can just walk up and down the same aisle as many times as I want. And I don't have to worry about anybody rushing me.
Asking for cookies or chips or Skittles or anything, right?
Yes. So today we're going to talk about the process that you went through in ending a toxic relationship and how learning to take accountability for where you were in life was the defining moments for you. So tell us a little bit about that.
So when I wrote my book, Don't Go That Way, Protect Your Purpose, right? That book kind of helped me get to where I need to be with really accepted accountability for that relationship. And that relationship was the relationship I had with my son's dad. And we started dating, we were in high school, then I had a baby. That's really it. And then it was years of just this back and forth. We were both young. We were both just unsure about what our purpose was in life. And it was a horrible experience. And not just for me, I'm sure for him too. And as I have gotten older, just taking accountability for my life was supposed to go in a completely different direction. I wasn't supposed to have a baby right out of high school.
Right.
He wasn't supposed to have a child right out of high school. So it's really just, putting away that anger towards the other person and just saying both of our lives probably weren't supposed to connect the way that they did. I'm really just in that moment, like learning to follow God's direction for our life, that for my life, that's like how I was able to take accountability for getting out of that situation, or like really starting to heal from that situation. Just looking at what I could have done different rather than what that person did to me. Like there were so many different ways and times I could have like left the situation alone, but I didn't. And that's my fault. And that accountability is so hard because it's easy to like point the finger at somebody else because they did hurt you. That doesn't dismiss them from it, but you probably could have taken yourself out of that situation.
Yeah, I think, well, and I think that comes with maturity
It does,
because,
yes.
it's easier to point the finger at someone else because
Mhm.
then you don't have to face the things that are broken in you. You don't
Yes,
have to face the things that, you need to work on.
right,
And sometimes I think we think taking accountability for it is giving that person a pass, and that's not
right.
at
And
all
it's
what it is.
not. It's not.
It's
It's the
it's
same as like forgiveness, right? When people say forgiveness is for you, accountability is for you too.
yes, yes.
So,
And accountability is something that I think gets a bad rap, right? Because we think
yeah,
accountability means you're in trouble for something,
right.
and that's not necessarily what
Yeah,
accountability is. I think it's self-reflection. I think it's self-growth. It's self-improvement. It's
yes,
taking the time to say, you know what? There are some things that I did to contribute to this situation.
definitely.
There are
Yes,
some things that I did that are outside of, God's plan and purpose for my life. That means that I was out
right,
of the will of, and I
right.
have to take ownership for that because no one made me do that but me. It was a choice that
Exactly.
I decided to make, right?
Right.
Um, and so, you know, when you get to that place, I think is when you can start to, like you said, it was a defining moment for your life.
Mhm.
It really changed a lot of things for your life. So tell us about how getting to that accountability really started. It was pivotal moments for you.
It was definitely hard because of course there's a child involved in it. So,
Right.
it's like I realized that we should have probably never dealt with each other. But it doesn't mean
Right.
that I regret my child being here. It just means that now the situation just looks a little bit different. And in that, like I started to do the work in myself, like, okay, so what is it that I want? What is it that God wants for me? What is it that I want to see? What type of person do I want to date? And then you have to start to like really do the internal work to elevate yourself to that level. And I think that that is something that I kind of didn't do. I know sometimes as women, I like to say we take on projects, right?
Oh, yes, girl. Yes, we do.
And people don't like when I say this, but we take on projects rather than like doing the internal work for ourselves. It's easier to say, okay, well, there's this person over here. Let me see if I can change them rather than do the work to change me. And that's what I started to do. And I feel like I became like bolder. I feel like I became stronger. I became a better mom because I wasn't chasing after a relationship that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
That's what
So
was
let me
pivotal for me.
Yeah, but let me ask you, I don't know now how long, I don't know how long you guys were together. You said from high
Yeah, it
school.
was on and off for, oh my gosh, I want to say like 6 or 7 years, too long.
Yeah, so that's a really long time, but
Mhm.
do you think that part of that was because you have two amazing parents who, are still together, they're still in
Yeah,
love. I mean, the
definitely.
cutest thing when I see them on your mom's Facebook, I'm just like, goals, right? Those are goals.
Yes.
But do you think that that had a lot to do with why you stayed so long? Do you think that your faith had anything to do with that?
I don't think my faith had anything to do with it. I feel like I was so far from where my faith needed me to be. And that's
Uh-huh.
just me being real.
Yeah.
Because if I would have followed my faith more, I would have got out of that situation. I do think that, of course, who wants to be a single parent? Who wants to, you know what I mean? So like you don't
Yeah.
go into it. First of all, I shouldn't have went into it anyway. And I feel like I have to keep reiterating that because like we do put ourselves in situations. And then
Yeah.
on the opposite side of it is like I can't move like a victim. I have to take accountability for the decisions that I made in order for me to be victorious, right? So I
Right.
think that it was, you know, of course I want my son to have his dad in his life and seeing the relationship that my parents had, but the relationship that my parents had was so far from the relationship that we had. So
Right.
I think it was just definitely just trying to make a piece to a puzzle fit that wasn't supposed to fit and not wanting to be that stereotype of a girl who had a baby right out of high school and she's raising her child by herself. So yeah.
Right. Right. So what kind of led you, like, so I know you said, I started looking at, taking accountability for my role
Mhm.
in the situation. But where did your faith start to get where it needed to be? What would you say was the reason? Because I know that just knowing who you are today, I know that you have a strong relationship with the Lord. So what got you back to that?
So definitely like leaving that situation. But then like a couple years after that, because I was healing from that situation, right? And in healing from that situation, I was doing all the wrong things. And I just had I was walking my dog one day. It's so funny because it was like I just kept hearing God say to me, "Don't go that way." And that's how my book was birthed. Don't go that way. Like all the things that I'm doing to try and heal those wounds that I got from that relationship, just everything wrong. God just kept saying to me, "Don't go that way." So then I found a church home in Hampton, Virginia, and I started going there. And that's when like my relationship with God just started to redevelop for myself because I grew up in church. So I've been in church my whole entire life. But as an adult, never really like having that for myself. That's when it
Right.
really started to like, okay, I can't keep doing the same things because I'm going to keep dealing with the same type of people. And I'm going to just
Right.
keep pulling the scabs off of a wound that I want to heal, but I'm trying to heal it with all the wrong things. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what was that process in developing your own personal relationship with the Lord?
Mm,
Because, I hear that a lot, and I know that I shared that I didn't have a personal relationship with the Lord
right,
growing up.
right.
And so it was a choice that I made to like invest in having a
Yeah.
relationship with God, and just being intimate with Him was like my goal. But you
Hmm.
kind of already had that foundation. So what really led you to say, yes, I'm ready to listen to Him now? Because as you said, like, I knew I shouldn't even went that way to begin with,
Exactly.
but I did. So God, the Holy Spirit was already saying like, this isn't the relationship, but you chose to do what
But
you
I
wanted to do.
chose, right.
Right. And I think we give the enemy so much, we give him so much credit for things like, oh, the
Yeah.
enemy did this. No, we chose
We
to do those
chose.
things. We bring those things onto ourselves. So what would you say, um, you know, was the thing that made you say yes to God? Yes, I'm ready.
I think just constantly repeating the same situations. And then I was going through like depression so bad after. And I think it was just like, I want to be able to see my child grow up. And
Mhm.
that's not going to happen if I keep trying to self-heal myself with all these different things that is just not working, like just going in a repeated circle. Like I know there's more required of me, but the pain
Right.
from the wounds is more important to me at that time than walking in my purpose. So I think it was just like, I want to be able to present to my son the best example of what a woman is, but what a parent is as well. Like he's already seen and experienced too much just in our toxic situation that I want to give him better. So that definitely was a major part of that.
Yeah. And I think, going back to what you said earlier, I was on Instagram and I
Mm-hmm.
ran across this thing, that this clip that Kevin Hart did about
Okay.
this very thing. And he was saying how if you don't heal and do the work to heal from the situation you're in, knowing that life brings pain sometimes, and there's some
Right.
things that happen and you're going to get hurt. But if you
Mm-hmm.
don't do the work to heal from that, you get stuck there and you can't
Yes.
ever move forward.
Right.
And so, when you say, like, I had to do this for my son, whatever your motivation is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to get to a place where you can move forward. You can really say, yes, this happened. It hurts. I don't like it. I don't want to be here. And, go through the moment. I always say God gives us a minute to do our tantrum.
Yes, take a second.
Like,
I love
oh,
that though, Denise, because I tell people, I say, listen, and it took me a while to get here. I'm going to give people a moment because I know that I've
mhm,
needed a couple moments, right? So yeah.
yes. And God says, okay, go ahead. Because there's been lots of times where I'm like, and you know what I'm gonna do? And I'm gonna do this. And you know what, God? I know you said this, but I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
do this and I'm gonna do this. And then God's like, okay, go
Okay.
ahead. Yeah, all right. And
Okay.
then I'll be like, okay, Daddy, I'm ready to listen now. Like,
Right.
I'm done with my tantrum. I'm really not gonna do all those things I said I was gonna do. And he's
Right.
like, I know, because
Yeah.
this is all part of his plan, right? I knew he was gonna throw this tantrum in this very moment at this very time.
Right.
And I knew you were gonna say that, right? So it's just kind of like, so it's just us getting out of our own way and going
Right.
through.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
so tell us a little bit about what you learned from that situation.
I learned that my life is a sum of all the decisions that I make, and
Yeah.
that like I don't have to tolerate or deal with anything that is not for me. And I think that sometimes in life we try to force ourselves to fix things or deal with things because we feel like it's better for somebody else, but it's like it's okay, and you have to consider yourself in a lot of different situations, right? So that's definitely one thing that I learned. Also just, keeping God first for sure, because I wouldn't have gotten into a lot of the situations that I did if I had him first then. So those are really two important things. And then like, of course, the accountability thing. Accountability is so important to me now. And then just not walking through life like a victim. I just feel
Mhm.
like um I just feel like my life is just so much better because I don't move like a victim anymore. I did, but I don't anymore. I don't feel like anybody owes me anything. Nobody owes me any closure. Nobody owes me any of that. It's up to me to take those steps to move forward, to be the best me that I can be. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. Like I learned from that and I just take it and then keep it moving because there's people dependent on me.
Right. Because when we talk about too, being giving an account,
Mhm.
right? We're not going to give an account for, well, Juanita did this to me.
Exactly.
And
He do not
like
care
that's
about that at
no,
all.
that's not what, like, that Facebook commercial. That's not what any of this like,
No,
it's
it
not,
doesn't. And Denise,
not
honestly,
how
I
any of this
say
works.
that because you are responsible to your response for your response, right?
Right. Yeah.
You have to be held, you're always held accountable for how you respond. And I know that sounds terrible because sometimes you feel like they deserve to probably get smacked upside the head. You're
Right.
still going to be held accountable for that. So
Right.
that's something that you have to always consider. Like you can't control what other people do, so don't let other people control you. Don't let their decisions control you. Don't let it change who you are on the inside of you. Stand firm on who you are and who you know you are. Whose you are,
Right.
right? You have to
Yeah.
remember
That
that.
part. Yeah, that part. Yes. I often say that, my sister and I, we always have this conversation, and she's like, well, I'm not like you. I just don't let things go like you let them go. I've not completely let those things go, right? Like they still hurt, they still sting. But I think people think that forgiving someone or not holding a grudge means that you have just absolved them of what they did. No, that's not at all what it is, but that's not for them. The forgiveness isn't for them, it's for me.
You.
And I am going to be held accountable for what I let brew in my heart, what I let happen, and like you said, our response is what we're responsible for. And sometimes, we say it's not fair, but we know that, favor is not fair, faith's not fair. You have to do those things in order to receive the goodness that God has for you. So it's less about them and more about you, and just, your perception of looking at things. And Sheikah and I talked about that in her podcast. It's like how we choose to look at things determines how we move, right? Like how we operate.
It does.
And so, how you look at things, because she said something similar about, when she goes through things now, she, considers herself, worthy, considers the fact that God chose her to go through this, because there's a testimony for somebody else in this, right? And she was saying she, feels honored that God considered her, like Job, right? He considered Job because he knew that he would not, be angry and curse him and be bitter with him. And that's what God is looking for us. And so changing how we, really perceive the things we're going through or the situations really determine all of that. And, choosing. I'm not
and that's a weight to carry. That's a weight to carry. That takes a lot of like discipline. It takes a lot of like you said, centering yourself in your relationship, abiding in him. Because that's a weight to carry. Like, thank you, God, for allowing me to go through this, because I know that there's something greater on the other side. And having to constantly remind yourself of that when storms come. Like when we did the birthday challenge, it's like so much stuff just started coming at all of us. And it's like, okay, what is happening?
But look at that 30 women that were impacted.
Right, exactly.
But just imagine that you, me, we were all going through. It was like literally we were getting knocked from every side.
Right, yes.
And we just chose to keep moving forward.
And keep pushing, we kept pushing.
Yes. And because of that, there were 30 women, 30 kingdom women that were impacted to go and impact more women in the kingdom.
Exactly.
Like, because we impacted them and they went out and impacted other people. But if we had given up, if we had said, you know what, we got too much stuff going on, we're just gonna we'll just do this another time or whatever. Right. But I think the key to that too is we were supportive of each other. We were there.
Definitely.
I would send a text like, I need prayer today. I don't know how I'm going to get on this call tonight. I had nothing to give. Right. And then, she would be like, you guys, that today was rough. And we prayed before.
Feeling the same way.
Yes. And we prayed before every time we got on to pour into people. And I think that's important. Because we try to go through these things on our own sometimes, and we know
but you need that community, you need that sisterhood, especially as women. Especially like we always talk about mental health and things like that. And I know for myself, when I was going through the situation that I was going through, I isolated myself, and that made it so much worse. And so now I'm so glad that I can pick up the phone and say, hey, Sheikah, hey, Denise, I need y'all to pray for me. Like, you know what I mean? So you need that. You need to be able to, like, you don't have to isolate yourself when you're going through something. And I know so many people feel like they have to do that because they don't want to feel like a burden to other people, but you really need that community, your sisterhood.
Right. And we weren't meant to go through this alone. We weren't.
Alone,
That's
right,
why there is, people who have gone through things before us and people that are going to go through it after us.
right,
And, I think it's so important to have, that support of each other.
definitely.
So what's some advice you would give someone who might find themselves in not just a toxic relationship? And toxic relationships aren't just
Nope,
domestic partners
it can be
or
work.
husband. It could be work, it could be friends. I mean, I have had some toxic relationships in my life. And
Yes,
part
me
of that,
too.
when I look back and I take accountability for myself in the
Mm-hmm.
role, I was a people pleaser, right?
Okay.
So I was doing things that was allowing these people to take advantage of my
Mm-hmm.
friendship. And then the first time that I was like, I'm done with that, it was like, oh, she's
You
not a good friend.
changed.
You changed. And but no, I just stopped accepting,
Yes.
the scraps that you gave me
Mm-hmm.
as a friend, right? And because I wanted to feel needed. But when I started my healing process, whew, there was a lot of people that were upset, a lot of people. And so, what's some advice you would give somebody about that?
I think that the one thing, and this may be cliche, is you really cannot pour from an empty cup. Right. So when we talk about sisterhood and we talk about taking accountability, it's knowing where you are, knowing that you don't have to say yes to everything and to everybody, and you don't have to be like the people please, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
know where you are. Surround yourself with people who will pour back into you, but be mindful of what they're pouring into you, because everything that people pour is not always good. So this is
right.
where you really have to learn how to like abide in him, really center
Yeah,
yourself, get to know what God called you to, get to understand what your purpose is, so that you can start to surround yourself with the people who are meant for you. And like we say, not just, this doesn't have anything to do with like romantic relationships, your work, your
hmm,
girlfriends, your family.
yeah,
Toxic relationships can be found in so many different ways, so many different forms, and just understanding that you don't have to put up with things that are not conducive to your growth. Like, you really have to learn who you are so that you know whose you are. And when you
right.
know whose you are, you begin to value yourself more. And when you begin to value yourself more, you start to set those boundaries so that the people around you value you too.
Yes. Yeah, that's so good. People always have issues with boundaries too, especially
Hmm.
when you didn't have them there before.
Right,
So their expectation is this isn't what I signed up for, right?
right.
But what I always say is you can set a boundary at any given time.
At
You
any time.
there is no certain time like I'm going to let this one run its course and the next one's
Hmm.
going to have a boundary. No, you can set a
You
boundary
can
right
set
then and
it.
there.
And I feel like
Yeah.
people who care about you, if they want to be in your space and in your life and they want to see you grow and they want to grow with you, they'll respect your boundaries. They'll rise to the occasion. Then if
That's
not,
right. Yeah.
what can you do? That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to set and maintain your boundaries.
Right. Exactly. Because that's important because I think when you're talking about protecting your purpose, if
Hmm.
you are doing things that are outside of what God has called you to,
Right.
then you're disrespecting the
Your
purpose and the
purpose.
call that he has put on your life.
Yes.
So when I started looking at it that way,
Hmm.
like, who is more important? Am I going to be upset because this girl's upset because I won't go hang out at her house to do nothing? Or am I going to do what God has called me to do and teach this Bible study class and do whatever it is that God has called me to do?
Right.
Um, I had to look at it that way. Like, like when you're kids, you're like, if I do this and my parents find out, like, is it
What's
going to
going to
be
be the
worth it?
repercussion?
Is it going to be worth it or not? Because if it's not, I'm not going to do it, right? Like,
Right.
and that's how I just kind of looked at it, and it
Hmm.
really did change everything. So tell everyone where they can find you, how they can purchase your books, because you have several books, Tell them where they can find your books and how they can, connect with your podcast, all the great things you have going on.
So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Juanita Nicole Harrison, or author Juanita Harrison. And then on Instagram, it's at the underscore sign Juanita Nicole, and then the underscore sign. My publishing company, you can find on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Grace for Purpose Co. And then my books, so I'm revamping my author website, but my books will be up on my publishing company and the bookstore really soon. You'll be able to find them on there. If you want a signed copy, you can just DM me right now. You can also find my books on Amazon as well. And then my podcast is Grace for Purpose Podcast. You can find that on all platforms.
Yes. And I will link all of those in the podcast description as well. So that people can find you, but also leave reviews once you get the book. I'm telling you, they're really good. They're easy reads, which is what I love. I love a book that's really difficult or easy to get through. I hate those books that are kind of like difficult to kind of like get going, or they're like slow at the beginning, good in the middle, then really slow at the end. Like, no, the books are really, they're easy reads, and they're
my writing is kind of like how we sit here and we talk. I'm writing like I'm talking to my sister. So when my sister picks up my book, she's like, okay, I feel like I'm sitting in the room and we're having this conversation and dialogue. So.
Right. Yes. So tell me one person that you would have me have on the podcast. A woman that has inspired you, has gone through some things, has abided in Christ, and has gotten to a place where she is, on this journey that we're on.
So I can think of a lot of different women, but my good sister, Tara Donata, that I actually met at a vending event. Let me tell y'all, networking is so important. You never know who you will meet there, right?
Yes.
So I met her at a vending event that I did in Williamsburg, Virginia, a couple years back. And we like clicked, we connected, and we text each other every now and then, just checking up on each other. And she currently lives in Alabama with her husband and her kids. And when I tell you, like, she is a person that when you walk in the room, you just feel his spirit. And I'm sure you know what that means. She has experienced a lot of things, being a single mom, and then getting in this relationship that she's in with her husband. And then just the way that the two of them just mesh, like it brightens my soul. She does what's called lip sync. I think that's what it's called. So she does that. And then she also helps out. Well, she does like volunteer work for a women's shelter in Virginia as well. So she's always like trying to give back, and then just always like super encouraging as well. So I think that a lot of women would be inspired to hear about her story and her journey to her relationship with Christ, all of that good stuff.
Yes. And I was saying to Shika when she was on, I don't know why I didn't do this sooner, because I can just sit and talk to women who have gone through something, have healed. That doesn't mean that what we go through is easy, or that we're never going to go through anything else. But just hearing women just share their stories has just encouraged me and excited me, and just really just given me this extra like fuel to my fire.
Yes,
and definitely. It's so weird to say, but I just love hearing women's stories, because I feel like all of us have so much to give. And I think because, like we talked about before, we don't talk about what we've been through, because, you have that, I don't want everybody in my business, and, all of that. But this is how we continue to heal. This is how we continue to heal others. And it's how we continue to serve God's people.
Right. Exactly.
We don't need titles, and we don't need to, have 1,000 followers to impact one person.
Exactly. Even if you just impact one person, I feel like that is enough. Because what if that's the only person that got, because that person can go and impact thousands of people, you know?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, Juanita, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate
Yes, I love this conversation. Thank you.
yeah, everything that we've been doing, how continue to support me, my planner, how you continue. I seen this post and I posted on my Instagram a while back and it said, surround yourself with women who mention your name when you're not in the room. And
Yes.
you are that person. You have constantly suggested me, my planner, and I am so thankful for you, sis.
Of course. That's what we're supposed to do. And the
Yes.
planner is awesome. So I tell everybody to get it.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.